Hello, dear Starshines. Christina here with Lightbody Academy. Welcome to today's lunchtime chats. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina and I am an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about those topics and issues that are very unique to us star seeds, visionary way showers, and visionary leaders of the new paradigm. We have perceptions and abilities that are very new to most of humanity. We embrace them because it's a part of our everyday world. And because of these unique perceptions and ways of seeing things, we engage the world very differently than the masses, the bulk of humanity. So we're here to talk about those issues, those exact issues, those that are very unique to us. And you know if you are a visionary leader because you feel inside, deep inside, that you were actually born for these times that we're in right now. And this is not because it's easy, not because this is no big deal. It's because you can recognize, you can see the landscape and recognize the profound opportunities that are available to humanity among this chaos that's going on the planet. Yes? You also know that you can identify yourself as a visionary leader because you see things in a very, very unique way that other people do not. And it comes easily to you. Okay? Yes. And the last thing I want to point out about that, because everybody here is a way shower leader in some aspect. And maybe you are self-identifying with all these pieces that I'm talking about, or maybe one or two. All right. But this last piece that I want to bring to you is that you are also aware, as a visionary leader or way shower, that the current narrative about the new paradigm is not the whole story. You know deep inside, deep inside, that there are new ways yet to be born. And it takes the best of humanity, the best of us, to get us out of the chaos, the turmoil that we're in right now on a planetary level. Okay. So if you can resonate with any one of those pieces that I brought forward, I want to tell you that you are a way shower. You are a visionary leader. Okay. And it may not be, leading masses of people. It's about having the courage to be the way you are, to do the way you see fit, to act according to your values and how you see things coming forward in the world. Okay. And you're not caught up in the mass brainwashing that's going on. So welcome. Hello. And as you guys join in, go ahead and say hi. Let me know that you're here. Hello, dear sister Lavana. Good to see you. Hi, Carol. Hi, Joanne. Love having you guys. Thank you for being such a strong support for these chats. I really appreciate you guys being here. So let's talk about the topics for today. Now, so I decided the topics this time around. There were some conversations going on in both the Telegram group and the Rise group, but but for some reason I just kind of really felt moved to go in this particular direction that really wasn't brought up yet. Oh, and by the way, before I say the topics, if you want to have a input into these topics that we talk about each week, so there are two ways to dive in. The first way is if you are on Facebook. There is a group called Rise of the Multidimensional Human. Now, to get into that private group, you do need to answer all of the questions, the entry questions. If you don't answer the entry questions, you don't get let in, okay? And that is to preserve the quality of the group. The premise of that group is that, okay, and this is a beautiful quote, and I love it. And most of the people of that community really understand the significance, and that is, there are people who search for beautiful places, and there are people who make places beautiful. So that particular community, the Rise of the Multidimensional community, is based on that. We are the ones who make that group amazing. You, me, it's our integrity, our value system. So answering those questions is just a small little step into affirming that you too are in line with that idea as well. Okay, so that's the first way. The second way is there's a group called Multidimensional Human that's on Telegram. And that's also, I think it's a public group, so I think you can search for it. And if you can't find it, you can find me in Telegram, and I'm Christina the Accelerator on in that particular group. And you can just message me, and I can lead you to give you a link to join that as well. So there's information and comments that are shared within that group that also influence what we talk about in these chats. So those are the two ways to dive in. Alrighty, and the topics for today are, all right, first thing I'm going to talk about, or maybe the last, because I kind of switch the order up all the time, a multidimensional's perspective of the new Dune motion pictures, the tells, the reveals, and the misleads. So I watched this movie. It was on HBO Max and in theaters, but I don't really go out in public too often anymore. But this particular retelling of the story, I found fascinating. I mean, the story in general is fascinating, but there were so many tells and reveals about the truth about reality in that movie. I just want to talk about it. And there were some massive misleads, and the massive misleads were in the original Dune that was released in the 80s and in this one. So I want to talk about that. And then we'll talk about what bigger truth might humanity be ready to wake up to that has the power to change everything. All right. And then could the idea of a new paradigm be an implanted story of false hope? So those are the ideas that I put forward. And then, of course, Dear Sister Starshines in the group also added additional questions in the comments of this thread. So I'll be touching on those as I can, as we go. So if you haven't already seen the movie Dune, either in the 80s or now, or maybe you've read the book, or you haven't read the book, or this is your total new exposure to the storyline. I'm just going to give you a heads up that I'm going to ruin it all for you. So maybe this is a chat you want to step out of, or maybe not. Maybe you don't care. So I just want to give you guys spoiler alert, maybe coming. All right. Hello, dear sister Nancy. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. And we have 2 Facebook users. Hello, hello, hello. And if you're on Facebook and you want me to be able to see you, call you out by name, go ahead and click on that see more link, and then you'll be able to see that StreamYard link at the very bottom, very bottom, that allows StreamYard to see your name. Hey, Sherry Lynn, good to see you, sweetie. All right, so Facebook user says, Dune, were they mining spice or gold? Yep. Yep. So in the story, as it goes, it's a hallucinogenic substance that allows a mortal mind to bridge space and time. That's what the spice is said to be in the storyline. And then there's also something called the water of life, which comes from the bowels of the young worm-like creatures that swim through the sands of the desert like a whale would swim through the ocean. And they are even equal in size, even bigger than maybe what a blue whale would be. So yeah, there's a lot of metaphor in there, but there's also a lot of reversals, right? And reversals and reflections. So that's the piece that really struck me, is that the reversals shown in this movie and the entire storyline were really profound, and it really explains a lot on how the codes of life get reversed by the powers that be in our reality. Okay, so I've talked about the reversals before, and I'm just going to kind of like draw out my chart here and talk about it again, but in a different way. Now, usually I'm talking about when I do the activation of the dimensions, which I do I do the activation of the 9 dimensions as I learned them from Barbara Hanclow many years ago from studying with her. I would do the nesting dolls, the circles within circles. But this time I'm going to focus on the secondary chart, which is how the higher dimensional awarenesses come into our field. So we have, real quick, I'll just draw the axis just to activate it. Okay, so at the base of this axis is the core of the earth, and at the top is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And at the top is the center of the Milky Way. And then this axis right here is considered the 10th dimension. Okay, that means this axis does not, you don't have access to 10th dimensional awareness until you have all these other lenses open and activated, and you're working with those levels of your perception. Okay. Okay. And this 10D axis can also be equated to the energy, the consciousness moving through your spine. All right. And then we get to this one. Okay. Core of the earth, the telluric realm, which is everything between the core and the crust of the earth. The telluric realm is the language of elemental beings. It's the language of like fire, earth, water, air, ether, but it's also microbes, it's crystalline structures, it's ionic exchanges of cells, it's those amoeba exchanges, there's bioelectricity, you know, our body creates, that's also considered part of the telluric realm. Okay, so the telluric realm is this very rich and dynamic part of our existence that pretty much all the physicality that we experience is built on the cultivation of the telluric realm. So our biosuit is system within system within system, just like that of our planet. Okay. And then we have the crust of the earth, which is the experience of space, experience of separation. So I might be separated from you. Our bodies allow this. But as soon as we go into meditation and focus on each other with our intent and awareness, instantly we become in resonance. And it's like we can think each other's thoughts, right? It's a seamless, instantaneous experience. This is distance healing works similarly, right? So as soon as you step out of the idea of you are this vessel and get into more of the sympathetic resonance of your existence, there is no separation. Everything can be instantly connected with by focus and intent. So in this way, 3D becomes more of a playground than a prison if you look at it like this, okay? 3D is a magician's playground, let's say. And then something that heavily influences our 3D experience is this 4D canopy. Now this is the energy, the natural energy, or actually natural is not the right word. We'll just say the current unfoldment of space, of time. So we travel through time like an arrow. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. The arrow is launched, the arrow has an arc, and then the arrow hits its mark. And that is a linear timeline. And that is something that is in that 4D, it's within our 4D field. The other structures that are within our 4D field are our belief systems, our inherited belief systems, the ones that our parents practiced, and our parents' parents, and our parents' parents' parents. Those belief systems that they practiced and embodied and lived, we inherit from our parents, from our mothers. If you don't know your parents, you definitely still inherited those belief systems through your mother. It just wasn't reinforced in your upbringing because another family took care of you. But we have inherited belief systems. And these are a foundation that skews all data experiences that we have in this life, this specific life. Okay. The other kind of belief system and energies within this 4D field are the things that our ego structures are based out of. So as we cultivate experiences and come to conclusions about those experiences, we come to beliefs about ourselves, we come to have, you know what I mean, this is the way it works kind of ideas that is also influencing this 4D field. So 4D is not just thoughts, but it's also emotion. It is, it's the subcurrents, you know, it's a vast aspect of who we are. And it's a macro and a micro. A macro example of a 4D field is maybe the one that's around the planet. Majority of humans share in a particular kind of resonance of belief that's on this planet. So, and in this way, everything in our 3D is experienced through a particular kind of spectrum because of that collective field that's around our planet. And then you have a micro version of this 4D field, and that's the thoughts and emotions that are held around, that's in our tissues, that's in our physical body. Our thoughts and emotions in our physical body are things that get anchored into our tissue for lots of reasons and many ways. And if you follow the work of Bruce Lipton, he's been exploring this, that he decided through his study, and there's been experiments that your cell's behavior is all about its environment. It's not dictated by the nucleus in the cell, not by the DNA. It's the outer edges of the cell because judging it by the environment that it's in, that decides what DNA gets activated, what DNA dance gets activated, and what RNA spreads within your cell, gets used within that cell. Okay. It's the environment around the cell that decides that, not the center. So that would be a micro version of this 4D field that I'm talking about. So someone who practices authenticity, compassion, has a high value in expressing their humanity, they're going to have a very different kind of frequency around their cells, very different kind of value system externally, and they're going to behave differently and engage differently, and therefore their cells are going to behave and engage differently. They'll experience more resilience. They're going to experience, right? They're going to experience less stress and more rest and digest. They're going to experience more regenerative qualities that are available to us via our biosuits. So this 4D field has many different layers to it, and all those layers are impacting us and our experience at the same time. Okay. And it's also highly polarized. And today's shenanigans going on, you can tell just how polarized it is. It's like you can't have a thought. You can't be, even being neutral is considered very risque. So you're wrong if you're neutral. You're wrong if you're on the opposite side. You're only right if you're on the right side, right? That's how highly charged our collective field has become. That's because of the narratives from our leadership, narratives and the manipulation of media, narratives of people projecting their pain and fear on other people. I mean, there's lots and lots of narratives that are compiling that experience. All right. So think of all the heaviness that's in those narratives, all the divide and separation of this 4D field because the really strong polarities are getting lit up. And then add in these higher dimensional frequencies into the mix. Then you have the 5D field. The 5D is pure creative energy. It's pure creation in the sense of the joy. When you're in a high state of joy and you're in a high state of just following your impulses, you're not following logic, you're having just a great time creating. Whether it be mud patties with your kids or just painting blobs of color on a canvas just because you feel like making color. No purpose to it, just you have an impulse to do something and create something, work with these elementals to do something with them. And that's the state of being within to access this 5D field. The other information that comes from this lens of the 5D field is the information that's within your soul's journey. So when you are in those states of being in the impulse and just doing, you are very often able to connect with other lifetimes where you've done something similar. And when you're just open and fluid with that kind of inertia, it just happens, and it's effortless. An example could be, okay, so when I was, let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, when in that time I was working at a horse farm, and I started taking, long story short, I was taking riding lessons from a really high level coach, and within a year, I was being groomed to do show hunter jumpers and stuff like this. And I remember thinking like, wow, I'm showing hunters jumpers. It's like, gosh, I've barely ridden. And I wondered why it came so naturally, why it was so good. My brain told me because I had an excellent teacher and I had excellent horses to ride. But it wasn't that at all. It was that when I was in the zone, when I was just in the zone, focusing just on being in connection with my horse and doing the steps. There's a lot of choreography that goes with that, and all this stuff. I was just in this fluid flow, and there was like a master horseman behind these eyes riding these horses, hunter jumpers and dressage. And it took only a year to trigger that level, that depth. And it was because it was in my past life. And when I was doing it, I was just in the flow, and it was happening. And I didn't think anything. I was, 11, 12 years old at the time. I didn't even know past lives exist back then. I was still in my, I was still very close to my family that was extremely conservative. So the only holy people I knew back then, the only idea of holy people I knew back then were monks and nuns. I had no idea that there was something called Buddhism. I had no idea that there was other kinds of religions in the world other than the Christian model. So it's extremely sheltered. And so it didn't register that this was a past talent that was coming through. But by training and doing these pieces, it just tapped in, and I became a frequency match for that mastery to come through and get expressed. So that is an example of the kinds of things that can happen with that lens. It's that pure creativity, the joy of doing, and just following the impulses without thoughts, just following the impulses, and you can tap into the eons of mastery that you've cultivated on a soul level. So there's that kind of thing. And then we have our 6D field. That 6D field is our light body that actually cultivates all those different experiences we're going to have. So somewhere in my light body, in that expression, there were timelines and past life experiences where being a horseman, an equestrian was a part of that expression. So what happens is that your light body is the map of all of your unfoldment. It's the map of the separation, the undoing, and it's the map of coming home. So this frequency, in order to see it clearly, it's important to step out of this polarity lens. It's important to step out of the attachment of any particular past life experience and just recognize it as an experience that was within the will of your being. Your being came here to have an experience, and those timelines gave your being the experience that it was looking for. This is why the idea of karma does not fit, because it's not good or bad, right or wrong when we're on this level. It's simply an experience. And the more that we get to experiences that are brand new thoughts, brand new emotions, brand new experiences, as in nothing anywhere in all of the multiverse that's ever been thought of or experienced before. That is the creme de la creme. This is a lot of times what our spirit's looking for. So in that landscape, it's all about the endless unknown. Keep finding the unknown and pushing into it more and more and more and more. And the idea of karma is that if you're a good person, whoever that measures that good, if there's a measure that you're a good person in one life, you're going to have blessings in the next life. Or if you're a crappy person in one life, you're going to be a pauper in the next life. And that's a game. That whole thing is a program to keep people in a loop. Right? But when you liberate yourself out of good, bad, right, or wrong, you can actually tap into the wisdom that is within your light body and recognize that there's an experience that my spirit really wants to have here. There's an experience that I'm being brought to. And the way to find that experience is to let go of the known and dive into into the mystery, into the unknown. Unfortunately, because of our conditioning in this area, many of us don't do that. We want to know what's going to happen. We want to know what we need to be aware of. We want to make sure that we have a handle on it, right? That's how we feel like we're in control. And this is something that I learned with the questions as well. It's like there's no one being in control. There's many, many co-creative experiences. So the quality of my ride, the quality of the ride I had either in riding a course or in a flat class, that was a co-creative experience between me and my horse and the other riders if they were in the ring too. Okay. It was all a co-creative dance. And the more I could let go and just let the dance be so and chime in at key moments, then it was a beautiful, graceful dance. If I rode too hard, like we call it overriding, if I overrode, then, eventually the horse would get sick of being told what to do and being micromanaged, and it would want to rebel. And in this case, I was riding a pony that liked to kick. So, some poor chap would end up getting kicked behind me potentially if I, put the horse in that state. But if I was with him and just let him go into his flow, find his flow, and I would be in my flow, there were key moments where he went this way, I went that way, and we just had this beautiful dance. And in the harmony of that dance, okay, I could be in the right place at the right time. So the foot was in the right place at the right time to make it over a particular combination or something like this. So there's a lot to these pieces. If you try to think about it all, it's overwhelming, right? If you try to get all those pieces, that's us trying to get in control. It's completely overwhelming. If we're just relaxed and in our joy of what we're doing, there's this beautiful grace that comes, and wind beneath your wings starts coming. And it's just a matter of a little bit of adjustment here, a little bit of adjustment there. And then you let go of control at all. And you just step forward and take action at key moments. Okay. So this experience that our spirit has us here for, we have to unlearn a lot of things that, a lot of things our needs of our ego driver. We need to unlearn those things so we can step back into the truth of our humanity, which is that we are co-creating with the entire universe. All of us are dancing with the elementals. All of us are dancing with each other. All of us are dancing with the cosmos, dancing with the earth. Okay. And in that dance, we discover those jewels, those unknowns. We invent brand new things that haven't been seen before, haven't been worked on before. Okay, we go and create our own miracles by coming into the unknown and being those bold and outrageous creators that our true humanity calls for. Okay. All right. So the light body, the 5D field, and then we have the stellar, yeah, like a download, right? Hold on. There's a download happening. Okay. Okay. And then we have our stellar networks, the galactic highways of light. This is information and consciousness that travels through these highways of light. So there's filaments of light that connect us all. Filaments of light that connect you and me. Filaments of light that connect us with the planets, with the sun, with the stars, with the Milky Way, with galaxies beyond, with the multiverse. Okay, we have these filaments of light, and this is pure frequency. And a lot of people who channel, right? Who channel information from different beings, they're using their ability to tune into certain frequencies within the stellar network. Now, there's a lot to be said about that, but just realize that these stellar networks it's like instantaneous communication. It's like you can have a thought, and the person in the being in sympathetic resonance with you and that thought can hear you, even if they're in an entirely different universe, even if they were somewhere on Mars or somewhere else in the Milky Way or Andromeda, they can hear you instantly, and vice versa. Okay. The other thing about this particular channel of perception, this is also a nesting doll that's holding space for the intent of your spirit. It's your tone, your core tone, your soul song, some might call it. And this core tone has within it everything that creates the shape of your light body. Okay, so this core tone is very, very close to essence. And the beauty about humanity waking up to this is that we recognize that frequency impacts our 3D reality. Okay, frequency impacts our 3D reality. Frequency impacts the telluric realm. Okay, sound and audible sound and non-audible sound impacts the telluric realm and our 3D experience. Okay, and then we have that all that is presence, that 8D field, and that's the experience of all being one with all that is. Some might call this God. Some might call this the all that is presence. Some may call it the I am that I am. Okay. I've heard some people reference it as the Christ consciousness. Though I feel like the true Christ consciousness, what people are really trying to refer to, is much bigger than the isness, but it's more in the cosmic arena. But yeah, that's another topic for another time. Okay, and then after the isness is the Milky Way herself, the Mother of God, the Madre de Dios, and that's the Milky Way herself. Now, in the original teachings of Barbara, she talked about it being the black hole in the center of the Milky Way, the black hole, and this is so, and it's not. It is and it isn't. Because all right, so a black hole is not just a black hole. A black hole in its structure is inseparable from the white hole that's on its opposite end. So when you're looking at the 9D, experiencing the 9D, when you can actually go take your awareness into the black hole, you come in and then you end up in the white. And then when you come back again, that is like when you come back to who you are in the here and now, this is like an initiation into wholeness, because now you've united that the black and the white, the black hole and the white hole, the experience and the consciousness touching that, and you brought it together, and now you're bringing it home to the here and now. In this way, and this is in ancient indigenous teachings, we are actually navigating. We are actually influencing the trajectory of the Milky Way galaxy and how it travels through space. Okay. They also talk about that we have the ability to steer our sun with our consciousness. So it's the same concept, but on a bigger scale, right? So whether the center of the Milky Way is a black hole or a white hole or a united consciousness is completely up to us and what our awareness, our being has touched. Okay. Now, many of us who feel like we've been incarnating on this planet for many thousands of years, because of the way consciousness has been locked down, it could be that you haven't touched this in so long that part of you a significant aspect of you has forgotten what that is. That could be. But now the veils are so thin, not just because of the times we're in, because we're in a time of changing ages, but also because of the season that we're in here in the Northern Hemisphere. The veils are so thin. You simply sit down and focus your awareness and your intent, and you can instantly connect with the frequencies of the 9D right here inside of your body and activate that kind of initiation with just your will, with just your focus. Okay. All right. So those are the dimensions in a gist. I know I'm just kind of cruising through them real quickly because I want to get to this reversal stuff so it can really land. So when you have higher frequencies that come in, they pass through a series of chambers, so to speak, or a series of thresholds that reverse and flip. Some reverse, some flip. So for example, this threshold is not just in the 4D. This threshold actually is in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. That's that black hole, white hole experience, right? And then, so what comes through the white hole, what comes into the black and out the white is different. It's going in one way and coming out another way. All right, so there's that layer of polarity until we unite those frequencies and they become unified within us, which a lot of star seeds have done, right? So a lot of star seeds have done that. When I say star seeds, I mean that loosely. That just means you're aware of yourself in a different way, in a very different way than a lot of other people are on this planet. That's all. So there's that kind of opportunity here in the center of the creation waves of the center of the Milky Way galaxy for things to get reversed, for light codes and encodements for life to get reversed. That topic is something that we have to talk about another time because there's a lot to cover in between. I want to focus on the reversals that happen here in the 4D field. So flipped and reversed. So there's flipped, right? And then there's reversed. That's the difference. So we have flip and reverse. So we have encodements coming in. They may have already been reversed, right? I'm sorry. They may have already been reversed, and then they come and hit this field and they become flipped, right? So what reverses or what flips them? Our belief system flips them. Our engagement with good, bad, right, wrong, male, female, black, white, right? That is what flips them. So we have encodements. We have encodements of all different frequencies coming into our planet right now. We have encodements from our sun. I mean, we've been having crazy solar flares happening. We have the Schumann resonance spiking. We have all kinds of cosmic dust coming in. Researchers are saying that now they're able to measure that the sun, the entire solar ring is now traveling through highly charged, an area of space that's full of highly charged plasma particles. So we have that kind of thing bombarding us. We have all these frequencies coming in from these higher dimensionals, levels of our reality, and they're coming in and they're getting reversed. All right, I'm going to use flipped and reverse back and forth. So say some encodements from the Pleiades are coming in, and encodements from the Galactic Council are coming in, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's happening is that once they cross this threshold, and all of a sudden it turns into this, right? It crosses this threshold, and then that gets turned into this. And then it also gets split into good, bad, right, or wrong, male, female. So then it gets split like this. So it gets reversed, and then it gets split. That is how that's what's happening. So also what's happening is deep inside within the earth herself, this core is changing. This core is no longer isolated as a hexagonal crystalline shape within the core of the earth. It's actually oozing out. It's oozing out and creating that iron crystal is actually growing and oozing out and creating massive platforms under the tectonic plates and stuff like this. This is there was a scientific observer posting that I put in the group last week about this. So this is changing. So is the telluric realm. So that means the consciousness, the anchoring of why we're all here is shifting its default. It's shifting its baseline, which means we are also shifting our baseline, which means everything that's built on this foundation, right, has to change to reflect this new baseline, right? So that means this field here is changing. It's going to be flipping. It's going to be reversing. Okay. But if you notice today, things still are really reversed. If you notice today, we're coming into an age where the truth becomes the lie and the lies become the truth. And who says what's true and who says what's a lie? Who says what's true and who says what's a lie? And the big authority here that a lot of people are citing is science. Yeah, a lot of people are citing science. And there's a reason why it's science. There's a reason why it's not religion. It's a reason why it's not culture. It's a reason why it's not any particular ethnicity or social status or anything like that. There's a reason why. And that is because we're going from we're coming from one paradigm coming into another paradigm. So this is in reference to the precession of the equinox. The Earth's axis is on a wobble, and where the North Pole points, this is the precession of the equinox. So each age is roughly around 2,000 years. Some are a little less, some are a little more. And we are leaving the age of Pisces and going into the age of Aquarius. And it takes many decades for this transition to happen. Okay. And the signature energy frequency of the consciousness of Aquarius is science. It's science. Now, talk about hijacking. Hijacking, I'm going to get to the Dune stuff because this actually ties into the hijacking too, but I want to get this part out before I lose it. Okay. Or actually, I think it'll help frame up the Dune stuff a little bit. So in my perceptions of the equinox and the powers that be, is that, the powers that be think in very long terms. Their plans are thousands of years long. They project thousands of years. That means they have an understanding of the universal patterns that are so for many thousands of years. It's not just, Mercury cycles or Venus cycles or Pluto cycles even. Pluto, I think, is 240 something years to get around the sun. So it's even beyond those kinds of cycles. So there's a very long projected plan, and the plan is to insert the powers that be, the power over dynamics intent, to be right along piggybacking with the rhythms that are on a universal level, on a planetary level, solar ring level, galactic level. So they're not just able to just put in a plan and screw everything else. No, there's an understanding. There's a co-creative element here that is like the baseline for all of reality. You cannot get out of that co-creative element. So their plans include the co-creative aspects. Okay, so coming back to the age of Aquarius, the signature of the age of Aquarius is science. Now, there's a spectrum here. We have the high octave of what science can do for humanity, and we have a lower octave of what science can do for humanity. And for the powers that be, they are looking to maintain control, maintain domination. So they want the most disempowered octave that they can get. And that is going to be using science to actually harness humanity versus using science to help liberate humanity. And I have a quote here, and this is from Astrolata. I don't know if you guys have ever been to that website, astrolata.com. So, I think about things, and sometimes I like to read what other people are having to say about it, just because it helps me refine a little bit what I'm touching on, because there's things sometimes I can't put words to. I'm sure you guys can relate. All right, and this is the quote. The quote is, "The higher octave of Aquarius is science, which is liberating for humanity, which gives us freedom to develop our true individuality and nature." Yeah, you guys agree? Rather than having just toil and toil and toil for survival. The lower octave of Aquarius is science is used destructively, and even worse, totally mechanicalizing humans' thoughts, just like we were machines. Everything in the natural, everything along with that thought form is everything is natural is considered coincidence, and the mind becomes disconnected from the heart. That's the lower octave of science, right? So the powers that be know the new paradigm has been coming for many thousands of years, and they have planted their stories. They have planted their seeds, just like those characters in the Dune movie, the Bene Gesserit mothers. Okay, so now let's go on to that. So the Bene Gesserit mothers is a very powerful group within the storyline of the Dune. series, and they are a group that are completely made up of women, and they have a breeding program that they have been overseeing for thousands of years. And what this breeding program was all about was to create a mind that can bridge time and space naturally, without the use of spice, without the use of any kind of substance. Just can naturally have a mind so flexible that it can bridge time and space, and therefore they can become the vehicle to help others to travel interstellarly. Okay. And they also trained concubines. They trained women. They trained women to have extremely high levels of awareness of their bodies, who they are. They were trained healers. They were trained fighters. They were trained in blissful sexual techniques and tantric techniques and stuff like this. Very similarly to the Mary Magdalene cults of the old times here on this planet. Okay, so these ideas that form up these characters and these roles are based in realities that we have in our mythology. In fact, a lot of people call it the Dune mythology. Okay, so back to the Bene Gesserits. In the beginning of the movie, in the most recent release, there is a conversation between the Reverend Mother that was the truth sayer to the Emperor and the mother of Paul. And what she said was the path has been laid. Okay. And later on, that gets flushed out in its meaning, in that and you know, it left a bad taste in Paul's mouth. He really didn't like that, because the population, what she was talking about was that the population of the planet Arrakis, where the spice was mined, they have a very deep belief system and a prophecy that a Messiah will come. And in this prophecy, there are very key events, very significant events that would happen. And that those would be the signs that the prophecy is unfolding. Okay. And these signs and these stories were seeded within that culture thousands of years ago from the Bene Gesserit mothers. Okay. So, right. This relates to our narrative about ascension. This relates to our narrative about the new paradigm, because a lot of people are thinking this new paradigm guarantees that we are coming into a golden age. It guarantees it, right? Because all those old systems that were functioning before have to fall. And therefore, what the new is going to be completely new and free of power over dynamics. Let me know if you agree. Please let me know if you agree. And listen, I'm not trying to take away anybody's hope here. I'm trying to make you guys really solid in who you are and where you are and what you're sourcing from. Okay. That's really my intent here. False hope is not real. It does not help. If anything, as soon as a false hope gets revealed, it creates huge crisis within people. And a lot of people completely stop their spiritual practices and their progression altogether because their false hope gets shattered. And this has been exemplified by the fall of the gurus, the fall of different spiritual teachers, the fall of all these beings. You can even say the crucifixion of Jesus and his followers. So there's a lot to why I'm saying this, because there is a change happening. We all are aware of it, but what kind of change happens? This is what I want us to step up into, to recognize that we are the ones, we, you, me, we are the ones who are going to facilitate what's next if we claim it. If we reclaim that ability and reclaim that power. And that means us stepping into our multidimensional nature. That's us embracing who we are as multidimensional beings, reclaiming our dream time, the power of our dream time, and actuating our visions together as a group, not as individuals. Okay. So let me get back to, so the Bene Gesserit put this prophecy in place. So when the time came or whatever, you would have an entire population of people who are in a particular belief system that are going to support the coming of the Messiah because their prophecy said so. Now, what the big mislead, what the huge mislead is in this story is that they are conveying the coming of this Messiah is something that's going to bring peace and paradise and prosperity to all people. But if you look at the bigger story, Paul becomes a ruler of vengeance. He sits on the golden lion's throne as an avenger. Okay, that's not a bringer of peace. That's not a bringer of prosperity to all. That's one who is avenging. And even his son sits on the throne, and he is the one that is the tyrant. So that mythology is speaking to people's craving for change, people wanting to end the oppression, end the suffering, and have change happen. But because they are putting it onto putting it onto something outside themselves, right? They are not actually in charge anymore of what that change is that comes in. You see what I'm saying with this? Yeah, please let me know. I mean, am I just nuts, or is this actually making sense? I mean, it makes sense to me, of course, but I want to be with you guys in this. So we're in the shenanigans. There is a change happening. Absolutely. There is a new paradigm setting in. Absolutely. We all can agree about this. There's no argument there from anybody. I think pretty much every light worker community, new age community, all have a sense that a massive change is occurring, right? And massive change means chaos. It means the fall of old systems and the rise of new systems. Now, we are so lucky to have the PachaMama to be the major space holder for our unfoldment. Our agreement above all else is to co-create with the PachaMama, to co-create within the dream of the mother, which means we need to follow certain rules, which is we need to follow the rules set forward by Mother Nature. And I mean rules, kind of like there's a way of behaving that Mother Nature rewards, and there's a way of behaving that kills life, right? There's a way of behaving that nurtures and feeds life, where all thrive, and there's a nature of behaving that oppresses and kills life and ends cycles, right? It creates death. Now, because Mother Nature is unstoppable, we, even in death, have an opportunity to rise with something new. So right now we're in the fall season in the Northern Hemisphere. The leaves are turning colors and the veils are getting thinner because we are being surrounded by the transition from life to death. Okay, so, and through that sympathetic resonance, we are closer to these realms on the other side than any other time of the year. So behaving in a way that's in alignment with nature, this is us stepping into our true humanity, okay? By us creating things from what we are told from a source outside of ourselves, we are trusting something outside of ourselves as having more truth than what we're capable of, right? Let that part sink in. So when you are investing yourself in prophecy, you are investing yourself in an idea that's bigger, that's beyond something that maybe you think you can touch yourself. When really what we need to do is the exact opposite. We need to not trust other things outside of ourselves. We need to not rely on stories, on intent, on missions that are outside of ourselves. The only way, right, for us to step into our truth, into our humanity, is by our own creation. Another person cannot inspire our humanity. It's an internal decision. It's always an internal decision. Humanity arises in suffering. Humanity arises in pain. Humanity arises. Okay? That's so because it arises from within. Someone can't tell you to forgive, right? You can say, yeah, I forgive you, but when the rest of your body doesn't believe that, then it's just lip service. It's not real. No one can tell you anything, but you in your deep sense of self, deep sense of who you are, the integrity as a multidimensional being recognizes that you want peace. And that decision inside is what brings the forgiveness. You see what I mean? So only you can decide to bring humanity forward. Only you, your personal choices, can allow your humanity to rise. And I'm saying this because the storylines that we're given are half-truths. They're half-truths and reversed. So we're never going to get there by following an outside narrative. We're never going to get there by their narrative. We only can get there by following the rules of nature. And that is, we are here as custodians for PachaMama. We are here as caretakers, as keepers of nature. That is our role as humans on this planet. That's the agreement with PachaMama, right? Now, there's other lies in here that religions tell us, right? Where the Judeo-Christian Islamic teachings that, we're born sinners or that we're kicked out of the garden. I mean, those are key stories anchored into the consciousness of humanity thousands of years ago during the turning of the ages. Okay, that specific story about humanity getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden and the story of sin was seeded during the turn of the ages, just like what we're in now. And it was the last turning of the age that happened. That was the last turning of the age. So, yeah, you got to let that sink in for a minute. So these powers that be know how to hijack these ages. For example, the coming of the Piscean age was supposed to be the coming of humanity to recognize one prime creator. But instead, it carried the powers that be influenced humanity in such a way where we took the warring nature of the age of Aries and we turned that into going to war over God versus releasing the fight and going and stepping into our all that is connection, that connection, that thread that weaves us all together as one family. Instead of going into that higher octave of the Piscean age, we were expressing the lowest octave of the Piscean age, which is warring and killing over God. Okay? So the turning of the ages is where the prime opportunities for these new seeds to get set. And that's what's happening here. That's why science is being used as the weapon right now to divide humanity. Because they want people in that state of having to protect themselves, having to defend themselves, because then they're so distracted with their emotional, mental energy. They're so distracted here, they're not going to look to where their true opportunities, where their true power lives. Our true power lives with walking and dancing with the earth. That is where our real power is. Okay? So these times of chaos that we're in, I think we all agree these times of chaos are crazy, right? And these times of chaos that we're in, what the deal is that we cannot embrace the climate change narrative because that is the idea that we can stop climate change. I don't know about you guys, but that ship has sailed years ago. There is no stopping the climate change. And what really sealed the deal for me was the Fukushima disaster. Yes, it's still leaking radioactive material into our oceans that are heating our oceans up, which is changing our jet stream, which is changing our weather. Okay, it's also changing the chemistry of our oceans, and ocean life is dying. I'm not trying to be doomsday, but I'm just pointing out the fact that by just recycling and changing carbon emissions, that's not going to reverse what's going on here. The climate change narrative is manipulation. What the real narrative is proper custodialship of our lands, proper custodialship of our air, of our waters, of each other. Okay, and that means we are working with Mother Nature in such a way where we know how to regenerate the soil. We know how to regenerate, clean the water. We know how to regenerate and clean the air. We know and embrace regenerative medicine, regenerative energy production, regenerative farming. Okay, so it takes the climate change bar and it lifts it way up here. It's no longer about climate change. It's about embracing our power to regenerate with the earth, with Mother Nature. And we absolutely have the ability, but it requires us to step into our humanity like never before. Really, it's going to require us, the highest expressions of the best of our humanity, to change, to turn this whole thing around. That's what it is. And that is the saving grace, actually. The saving grace is that PachaMama is like, this next new age, the hijacking is not going to happen. If it does, that means the end of life. Okay? So this is where it looks like our destroyer, but she's actually our ally, because she is not taking anything less than our highest and best for us to succeed, to us to get out of this mess. This is my perception of it, right? So this is why we need those courageous way showers. We need those visionary leaders. We need those bold and outrageous creatives, because we do what's here. We go by our own authority. Just because someone tells us it can't happen doesn't stop us from doing it. You know, how many indigos out there have that meme that says, yeah, tell me I can't do it, and I'll go do it twice and take pictures, right? That sentiment is that's speaking to something that's an expression in your soul, right? That's a soul level expression. Some aspect of you is not accepting the program, is not accepting the narrative, and is demanding that you arise past it. Okay, so even if you wanted to develop an ego driver that would listen to the rules, you couldn't, because your soul won't let you. Okay, so seeded stories that have gone on for thousands of years. This is one of them, right? So in that movie Dune, they talk about that, and they do spend some time fleshing it out, which I'm really glad that they did, because that potentially can wake some people up to recognize that on this planet, in this reality, there are seeded stories within our mythology that set us up for the next level of overtaking the changing of the ages. Okay, and this is tying into that lower octave expression of science versus the version of science that actually liberates humanity and their creativity and their abilities, right? Okay. All right, and then another tell is, all right, so in this story, where I'm at in time, oh my gosh, an hour has gone by already, guys. That's nuts. I haven't even gotten through all my points. All right, sorry about that. But let me get through a few others, because I wrote a few down and I just want to flesh them out because they're so important. Okay, so one of the things in the Dune story is that there's no thinking technology. There's no AI. It was actually outlawed. Thinking computers were outlawed, and instead they cultivated genetic expression. So they cultivated genetics and training to cultivate a human that's a human computer, and those are the mentats. And they cultivated humans that were healing nymphs. In this movie, they have healing nymphs, and those healing nymphs were a completely separate sect. And their whole thing was centered around healing. And what did they do? They used sound combined with black goo, nanotechnology, to heal the Baron. Okay, so isn't that interesting? So even though the thinking computers were outlawed, and all of the known universe uses this genetic knowledge and training, spiritual training, intellectual training, all this stuff, even though they do that, the Emperor has a planet where he was cultivating thinking computers, robots, machines that were fighters, because he was going, later, the plan within the plan is to create chaos and then bring in these machines to dominate and control universe again. So there's that kind of thing. And because the thinking machines were not allowed to be part of the reality, part of the experience of these different races and planetary engagements and stuff like this, humans were forced to cultivate themselves to accommodate the different needs. So you have that human computer, then you have those healing nymphs, and then you have the House Atreides were extremely bold and warrior-like, but also peaceful and noble. Okay, they were kind of like the true humanitarians of the universe, right? The true humanitarians, and they were extremely popular and favored by all the other houses of power. And then you have the Harkonnens, depending on how you say that, or how you pronounce that. They pronounce it differently. I imagine everybody reading the book would also pronounce it differently. Anyway, but the Harkonnens were humanoid as well, but they were insectoid humanoids. And this is important because each house, each planet had a different breed of human. Okay, and these breeds of human had purposes. So the breed of the human of the Atreides houses was their dignity, their nobility, their humanity, their strength, their ability to bring peace, all this kind of thing. The Harkonnens were humanoids, but they were heavily influenced with insectoid energy and consciousness. And they were definitely they did not have those kinds of, they really valued power. They were oppressive. They were cold-hearted, all this other stuff. And if you get deeper into the story, which the only reason I know, I didn't read the books, but I was fascinated with the director's cuts that in the 80s that were coming out. And they told a lot more of the story in those director cuts. And each of these other races, including the race of the Emperor, which I don't know if they're going to reveal in the story, they were very significantly different humanoids than the Atreides, than the Harkonnens, and so on and so forth. So this is talking about hybrids and genetic manipulation as being a default experience. Okay, so this is about being a default part of the experience. And a huge tell was when they were, there was a scene where there was this giant spider creature eating out of a bowl, but the spider creature had human hands. Really creepy. And the Mentat was trying to pass him off as a pet, but the Jesuit mother was he said that this is a pet, it's of dim consciousness and it can't understand. But then the mother used the voice on him. The Bene Gesserit mother used the commanding voice on it, and it left. And she's like, he understands. She totally called his bluff, totally called his BS. And this spider with human hands left the scene. So this poses a very interesting dilemma among us coming into the new, right? Bringing in the new is, where does technology play the role? Where are the limits? Because where certain limits are placed, where technology comes in, something has to take place of that need, right? So for us right now, technology, this whole thing that we have it kind of creates interconnectivity with humans. And some may criticize that, say maybe it's interfering with our psychic connections, stuff like this. I don't really think it is, but there's narratives like this because there's anti-technology people and there's pro-technology people on this planet. There's transhumanism, pro-transhumanism on this planet. So I'm asking this question so you can decide what is the role and what is okay for computers, for technology to be a part of. Because if it's not going to be technology, it's going to be genetic manipulation that fills those roles. And we need to decide where that line is for ourselves. Now, there are many different kinds of humans on this planet, many different races. Okay, so we have ethnic races, of course, but we also have different star races. We have different soul families, and we have different kinds of DNA, different kinds of bodies. It's like our consciousness that's imbuing our body activates certain DNA dances within the family, within the genome that we're imbuing. And the family that we come from offers us a baseline, but it's our consciousness that actually decides what DNA is going to have an expression and what's not. So are we okay with the idea that certain breeds of humans have certain roles that they must play? Right? So are there certain breeds of humans that are only suitable for healing? Are there certain humans that are only suitable for hard labor or for computing or for ruling, right? You guys see, this is what an old paradigm idea this is. They're trying to weave it into the future, but we need to, when we take control over that kind of, use our own ethics to decide, then, we are not allowing the narrative to be told to us. We're creating the narrative at that point. Okay. Oh my gosh, I can't get through all these tells. I'm so sorry. Let's see, what's the other thing? The other thing is blood magic. Holy crap, and the power of ceremony. Absolutely. In the very beginning of the movie, I love it. They had this ceremony, and Paul was kind of like scoffing, like thinking that it was ridiculous. And even maybe his dad was thinking that going through all this for ceremonies was ridiculous, but it was such a poignant moment because what happened was the heralder of the change, they all came out, set up their places. When the ceremony began, the heralder of the change declared who he is, declared the emperor as being such and such, and the intent. And that is House Atreides taking over Arrakis, right? And then he said, the question was posed to Leto, do you accept? And what Leto did was brilliant. And I mean, this is a story, of course, but if you understand ceremonial magic, you recognize that this is a huge thing, what he did. He stepped forward and he just didn't say, yes, I accept. He declared his intent for going to Iraq, or it was filmed in Iraq, going to Arrakis, right? So, and when he declared his intent, which was to come and bring peace to Arrakis, he's like, we are hearing a call and we rise to answer that call. We will to bring peace to Arrakis. All right. So he did not accept just the story given to him. He took it and turned his own intent and put it into the ceremony. And that intent is actually what influenced way later in the movie, Paul's decision to stay on Arrakis and consider to go through the desert. Well, that combined with his visions and dreams and stuff. So I encourage you guys to check this story out because it's super clear, and the tells are absolutely massive rabbit holes for the time that we're in right now, and I can't stress enough how important it is for us to reclaim our multidimensionality, reclaim our power of dream time, our power of manifestation, our power of co-creating with the earth, co-creating with the elements of the earth, co-creating with each other. We have to do this or else it's going to get done for us. And I guarantee you the powers that be are not looking for everybody to be equal and living in peace. They want to keep their power, they want to keep dominance, they want to keep control, and they want to create classes that they can control and classes that they can feed upon. So if that's not something that sounds good for you, you have a choice. You have impact here. You are not insignificant. They want each and every person, little, middle class or poverty stricken or wherever you are in your spectrum here. They want us to believe we are insignificant. We are not. We are very, very powerful. Not just because we have thoughts and emotions. Okay. We are endowed with connection with the infinite. We are endowed with the power of our dream time. We are endowed with our agreement with the earth to manifest within her dream. We are endowed with many, many gifts and initiations that were meant to empower us for our journey. It's not it's not something that we get rewarded for only after achievement. This is why you're here. This is everything you need. We love you. Blessings to you on your journey, and let go. Okay. This is the way of the Mother Earth. Okay. Thank you everybody for being here. I don't know. I didn't really get to any of those questions because time just flew by. I'm so sorry about that. Dearest, I'll just read a couple things here that people are saying. All right. Carol is so about making sense. Jackie's on board. She understands. Joanne says there are secret places of the lion, and references to the Lion of God question regarding your story of Paul sitting on the golden lion. Is the lion aligned with symbolic of the Avenger? Okay, so this is a question here. Thank you so much for sharing the info about regeneration. Yay, thank you. All right. Thank you guys so much. I know this is different than maybe things I've done before, but I think it's so important for us to really get real with ourselves and understand that we have abilities here and we have a responsibility to step up and take responsibility, like really for our reality, for what's happening here. And none of us can do it alone. We have to do it with each other, which means we need to get over ourselves and truly show up for people in our humanity, in the highest form of our humanity, or the best that we can do in that moment. You know, we need those courageous leaders, those unlimited visionaries, and those outrageous and bold creatives. We need you. We need you. Okay. So please, 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 all of you here fall somewhere in that spectrum. All of you here have an impact. So all of you here have the ability to start creating change right now, today. So thank you, everybody, for giving me your time and your attention. If you want to follow up with us, you can check some of the programs that we have online. We have some online programs that are really good. One of them is called Quantum Reality Shift, where we help you work with untangling quantum that's stuck in different past life narratives and past life trauma dramas and stuff like that keep us locked up in certain patterns. So we have the Quantum Reality Shift that you can sign up through on our website, lightbodyacademy.com. And then we also have all kinds of platforms and free stuff that we put out to support you on your journey. Like I mentioned, there's the Rise of the Multidimensional Human group on Facebook, but we also Multidimensional Accelerator on Instagram and Lightbody Academy on YouTube and on Telegram, the Rise of the Telegram, Multidimensional Human. So please, definitely like and share this video. Help us get the word out. That's a wonderful way to support us in this process. And let's see. Yes, I guess that is it. Hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we shall see you next time. Mwah, mwah. Bye-bye.